producing consumer goods since the Industrial Revolution. Procter and Gamble's brands are in homes all over the world. Now, with a well-known activist at the gate, what does the future hold for this global consumer stalwart?
What do we make of the drama surrounding Procter and Gamble, the gigantic consumer packaged goods company? I'm talking about the increasingly contentious proxy fight between ultra-engaged investor Nelson Peltz, who's trying to find owns a substantial stake in the company, and the existing management. Peltz is pushing for a seat on the board of directors. Last week, he released a detailed 94-page presentation laying out his concerns about Procter as it's currently configured and his plans for the company. Peltz wants Procter to turn itself into what he says is a leaner company with fewer, more autonomous business units, fewer middle managers, more outsiders brought in. In response, the company put out two statements citing the strength of the brands, number one, I could go on, and the many ways in which management has already streamlined the business in recent years. Now, last week, my colleagues David Faber and Sarah Eisen interviewed Nelson Peltz on Squawk on the Street, asking him about his plans for Procter. Tonight, I want to give David Taylor, the chairman, president, and CEO of Procter, to tell the story of this great American company himself, by the way, with a stock that hit its all-time high today. Mr. Taylor, welcome to Mad Money. Good to see you, sir.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Have a seat. Have a seat.
Certainly.
All right. Well, look, we know your company's been in the news lately for about the proxy fight. But you know what? I think it's important, and we'll get to that, for you to tell the story of this, maybe the ultimate iconic American company.
P&G has gone through a tremendous transformation in the last several years, and we're a very different company than we were 10 years ago. Nelson Peltz often talks about data that has been supplied to him by somebody that left 8 years ago. Today, P&G is back on track. We've made changes in our portfolio to get it more focused. We're now in 10 categories. These categories are ones where performance drives purchase. We are the company that brings you all of these brands. P&G has also gone through a dramatic portfolio improvement in addition to the productivity improvements. These coupled together, along with the cultural changes we're making, has P&G back on track. We just finished fiscal 16-17, and we delivered our top line. We beat our bottom line number and delivered our cash number. P&G is back on track.
Okay, but that you are even ahead of when I was going to bring it up, admitting that there was a dry spell, maybe a stalled spell at Procter that perhaps, if you take a longer time frame, might indicate that there is some need for more change.
Well, certainly, if you look back over a long period of time, we went through a period where we had tremendous foreign exchange impacts. Right. And I do acknowledge that. Over that 5-year period of time before last year, and including really last year, we had $14 billion of foreign exchange impact on the top line, $4.5 billion on the bottom line. But we didn't accept that we can improve. We made the changes to our portfolio. We made the changes in our organization. We're leaner today than we were 5 years ago, and especially 10 years ago. And we made the changes in our culture to be able to set ourselves up with a much more focused, empowered, and accountable organization.
Well, this to me sounds like a lot about the brief that Mr. Peltz wants to bring to the table.
It's interesting. I've met with Mr. Peltz many times. Nelson and I've talked in person over 6 times, back and forth 16 times we've corresponded. And I've listened to his ideas because I believe it's important to listen to investors. But in the first several meetings, he didn't advance new ideas, and the few new ideas he did advance weren't right for our company right now. We've already made many of the changes he advocates. A more focused company, we're there. A company that has people empowered and accountable, we're there today. And we're executing. The last thing we need right now is a reorganization. When you're delivering and improving across almost every element you look, stay the course, execute brilliantly, and create value for the short, mid, and long term for our shareholders.
Let's talk about value creation in terms of innovation and growth. What have you brought that has allowed the stock from July of 2015, when you were announced as CEO, to materially outperform?
The entire leadership team and the 95,000 employees of P&G are dedicated to creating value. And the changes that I mentioned have come together. The portfolio changes, the productivity changes, the cultural changes, and the organization design is working. And innovation is the lifeblood of P&G. If you can go back through decades, we are an innovation-driven growth company. We listen and understand what consumers' needs are. We stay focused on the consumer. And we try to do that better than any of our competitors in any category in every country we compete in. When we do it well, we get rewarded with share growth over time. Today, you're seeing it turn. 2 years ago, we had 2 of our top 20 countries grow in share. growing or holding. Today, we have 11 of our top 20 countries growing or holding share. The progress is strong.
Well, let's talk about the changing world that you're facing. I know you're always customer-driven, but there are different kinds of customers. We live in a world where the Walmarts and the Targets are feeling pressure from Amazon. These are great customers of yours. How do you fend off the pressure to reduce your margins? How do you deal with the idea that the aisle, which you have dominated through superior packaging and through a look that actually makes you want to buy, is no longer the be-all and end-all of business?
At the end of the day, consumers decide whether we win or not. And if we have brands that consumers prefer and we bring innovation that grows categories, we earn our customer support. Customers ask me for two things. Generally, grow the categories and help them make profit. The way you do that is innovating. And if you look at it, the innovation that we're focusing on across product, package, the way we go to market, and the way we communicate is creating value for both consumers and for customers. That's why we have the support of our leading customers.
Well, sometimes people feel that there is the millennials don't buy into the all packaging that you have and all the materials that you have. The millennials they may like the pod, but they want something that is more natural and organic. What are you doing about this new generation that seems so judgmental about the things that you and I may have liked when we were growing up?
The millennials, like almost everybody, want products that solve problems, and performance drives the purchase. And these brands solve problems or provide important needs for each person. Most of these brands are actually winning amongst millennials. What do they want? If you have dandruff, what do you want? A product that solves the issue. You reach for Head & Shoulders. Interestingly, I've heard that some say big brands can't grow.
Right.
The fastest growing part of our company is the big trusted brands. Whether that's online or offline, trusted brands that truly perform win with consumers.
All right, but we got to go back to this idea. You talked about picking up share, but you understand that there was a period where the company had, and I'm going to use this non-pejorative term, stalled, where you were not doing as well as competitors. Are you telling me that you've been able to turn this around this fast? Because there was a period where share was lost in many countries.
Yes, there's no question that's true, and I don't deny where we are over the last 10 years. But look at what's happened over the last 2 years. The entire company has rallied around this strategy. They've rallied around the portfolio. They've rallied around the organizational change. There's one organizing principle for our company, and that is the product category. And we've given each of the 10 product category leaders the accountability and the responsibility to make the decisions on innovation, branding, all the way down to how many salespeople they need in the markets that are end-to-end. And it's paying off.
All right. Well, look, we've got a lot more to talk about with Procter and Gamble's Chairman, President, and CEO David Taylor, who is fighting an active investor who would like very much to be on the board. We'll be right back. All right. We're back with David Taylor, Chairman and CEO and President of Procter and Gamble. Hear more about his company's prospects, continuing proxy fight with Nelson Peltz. Mr. Taylor, thank you so much for being with us again. Okay, let's talk about this proxy contest.
Yes.
Your company's stock has been a consistent recommendation of mine since I was at Goldman Sachs. It's 33 years. 33 years of record. You've hosted number one brands. Returned $130 billion just in the last 10 years alone. Does it strike you as odd that a company with 61 consecutive years of increased dividends is now the subject of a proxy fight?
Well, it is surprising that he's coming in and suggesting we do many of the things that we have been doing. We didn't ask for the proxy fight, but I'm absolutely committed, as is our board of directors and the people of P&G, to do what's right for the short, mid, and long term for the company. And for that reason, we're fighting it.
But why would he necessarily be bad for the short, mid, or long term? He's got 50 years in the consumer space. He's a large shareholder. He certainly wouldn't want to hurt his own situation. Wouldn't it be good to say for corporate governance to bring in an outsider with a different kind of view?
Well, certainly 10 of our directors already are independent. So we believe in getting the strongest people possible. And we've got an outstanding board. You know many of our board members.
I do.
They're outstanding, and they have deep experience in the areas that are most important for the future of our company. You know, many people tell me, why not? Why not is not the governance standard for our company. We want why. Who are the right people to bring to the company that would add value for the future?
But the man's done a lot of homework, and conceivably you could put him on, rather than fight him for what he says might be as much as $150 million, you could invite him in and bring those ideas. He's just one person. Why would he disrupt an operation?
A couple of things. First, I don't know where you got the $150 million. It's preposterous.
Okay, so it's much less than that. We're going to nail that down.
Yes. My goodness, yes. I don't know where you got the number.
Third of it?
No, what we've said, the cost of solicitation, we've already given an estimate for around $35 million.
Okay,
it's somewhere in that area for the solicitation. Now, the why not? He's proposed some things that could be very dangerous to the short term, which is reorganize the company right now. And he's proposed something very dangerous for the long-term future of this company, and that is eliminating our corporate R&D. Many of the inventions and the process improvements that serve many of these brands and underpin the tremendous performance and efficiency and value they offer came out of corporate R&D and then into the businesses.
Okay, but now I want people to understand he is not calling for a cut in the R&D budget.
Correct.
You're talking about a different kind of R&D at a different level because, you know, with his 3 business units, he would tell you he's not trying to eliminate you as the CEO. He is not trying to spend less in R&D.
Yes.
You just think the way that the company's spending the R&D is fine now versus what he wants.
What we want to do, many of the innovations, one individual business or even a collection of businesses either wouldn't have afforded or wouldn't have gone after. There are connections across many different areas. You know, I can give you several examples. The sachets that are often used for samples in the U.S. and they're sold by the hundreds of millions in developing markets. The process to make them faster than anybody can make them commercially and at a lower cost was developed using our liquids understanding from our liquids businesses and our converting capability that comes out of our paper businesses. If you had separate businesses with separate R&D, you wouldn't have made that connection, and we'd have missed the opportunity to take advantage of a real plus.
Okay, fair enough. Now, I wanted to ask you, there were some notations in your previous statement, not the one today, which you said, and I'm going to quote this here, the board of management also talked to many directors, CEOs, and others who have worked with Mr. Peltz, and positive recommendations were not forthcoming. I know 7 of the CEOs, and they have said positive things to me. Mr. Peltz says that he's spoken to 13 out of 13, and they said that you didn't even contact them. It seems like there's a disparity here. Can you explain it?
That's just not true. I have talked to, and board members have talked to, directors, CEOs, and members of senior management. I respect and honor the confidentiality people give or ask for when they give me information. But we did our homework. P&G does its homework. You know our board. Our company is thorough.
Mr. McNerney.
We want the absolute best for our company, whether it's a member of the board of directors or whether it's our senior management. The standard is the best. And we've done our homework, and he's not the right person for P&G right now.
Is it because your board is rigorous? And there's not Mr. McNerney's the lead director. We have praised him often from former Boeing. Frank Blake.
Yes, another outstanding.
Right. So what I need to know is there something else? Is it category? Do you think it's a lack of knowledge? Is there something about Mr. Peltz that wouldn't bring, after 50 years of consumer products, something to the table of value here?
He and many other people could be candidates, but what you want is the best.
Okay.
And we've looked at things. We've identified areas that the board really is focused on right now. We want people that understand technology. We want people that have applied technology into our industry. A great example is the last person that joined our board. We said we want folks that understand technology. We brought Amy Chang on the board. This is somebody with an undergrad and graduate degree from Stanford Engineering, hardware and software, worked at McKinsey for a number of years, so got to see a number of different companies, then worked at eBay, applied that technology to our space, then went to Google, again, a number of different levels, and ended up as the global head of Google Ad Measurements, and then started her own company as the founder and CEO of another digitally based company. That person is 40 years old, brings diversity, technical skills, and many of the things we're looking for. That's what we're trying to do, is find the best people for our board, not just why not.
I don't mean to interrupt, but Mr. Peltz did say that you cut back your digital spending in the last quarter, in part to be able to have a better return. With Amy Chang, now Amy Chang was added at the same time.
Yes.
Is it true that you cut it back?
We cut the fourth quarter modest amount because we learned some of our ads were being served to bots, and also some of our digital ads were in inappropriate content. We vote with our money. Our digital spending year to year is flat. And the other thing is our digital spending drives our e-commerce business. Our e-commerce business is twice the size of our next competitor. We have a $1 billion business in the U.S. growing at 40%. A $1 billion e-commerce business in China growing at 40%. We understand how to reach consumers when and where they're receptive to the message. We use all forms of media to do that. But we haven't made a choice to cut digital spending other than to make sure it's efficiently being served and leveraged.
Okay, want to know where you are in this blue versus white fight. You're the blue card for people who are at home who own the stock. Mr. Peltz is the white card. Have you talked to the index funds, have roughly 18%? Have you talked to enough large shareholders? Because I mention this because Mr. Peltz on our air said that lose isn't part of his vocabulary. Should it be?
I think it should be for him. We're focused on one thing, which is to win the proxy contest because we're working for all our share owners. Nelson Peltz, in one of the first meetings I had with him and Jim McNerney, said, David, you got to give me something for my share owners. We need to work for all of our share owners. We need to do what's right for the mid and long term for the company, as well as deliver in the short run. Nelson Peltz is not the right person. We have done our homework.
Well, he has said that you have told him, we cannot bring in outside people at too senior level or they will fail. That, to me, says that Procter is too insular.
He's taken that very much out of context. We are talking about acquisitions. There have been a number of acquisitions where many senior leaders, some were incented because they had packages that got extra money if they left in the first few years, and others just self-selected out. P&G has made the choice, and I've been very open about it. We're going to hire the best. If it means selectively going outside, we'll do that. In the last 9 months, we've hired the Chief Information Officer from the outside. Right. We've hired our Vice President of Personal Health Care in North America from the outside. We have 4 times as many external experienced hires in the last year as 3 years ago. Our standard is not internal or external, it's the best.
All right, now I think I don't want to overdo proxy. I want to talk about long-term for a second.
Sure.
Long-term, if you own the stock for last 50 years, how have you done?
Very well. We supplied a chart, and if you can put it up, it shows P&G's progress over the long term. P&G has been an outstanding stock for people to buy and hold.
How many companies have had a better record than your 61 years of increased dividends?
I don't know of many. You may know. I'm not sure how many. We're 61 consecutive years, and we're quite committed to giving consumers a dividend, and our shareholders, and raising that dividend every year.
And again,
track record's pretty strong.
And again, you admit that there was a period of underperformance. You've come in. You have had to do a lot to reinvigorate. True.
We've had to make the changes that were necessary. I think that is true. The external environment that created very difficult times for a few years, the foreign exchange impact on our company was differentially experienced versus European competitors or competitors that were dealing in pound or yen. But we addressed that. We also addressed some of the comments he's made about a matrixed organization that's too bureaucratic. He said that, but that's again using data that's 8 years old, 5 years old. What we've done is made the changes that are needed to make sure the company's positioned to grow for the future. We have a very empowered organization. At the end of the day, a couple of things have to happen for P&G to win. We stay focused on consumers. We're an innovation-driven growth company, and we empower the talented people in P&G.
But you understand that he does have your former CFO, a man I have great respect, saying that there's not enough change.
He has a reference point of 8 years ago. What has changed in your show for the last 8 years? What has changed in our world in the last 8 years? Having somebody that left 8 years ago that is not in touch with the changes we've made. Today, we're a profoundly different company than we were 8 years ago. Our portfolio is different. Our capability to generate productivity that we can reinvest in product and package to delight consumers is different than it was. The organizational structure we've chosen is different. And the culture that underpins that, the empowered P&G people, is different. All of those things give me confidence. P&G has a bright future.
Fair enough. Let's leave it at that. That's David Taylor, Chairman, President, and CEO of Procter and Gamble. Thank you so much, sir, for coming on Mad Money.
Pleasure.
Booyah! Jim Cramer here from Mad Money. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube. Click here to subscribe and get the jump on my exclusives with CEOs, plus market news, investing advice, and a whole lot more.